Literally make or break a business, the budget. And no, this isn't just about crunching numbers. It's about drawing a map that takes you from a great idea all the way to profit.
So this is the big question, right? You've got the ambition, you've got this amazing concept, but how do you actually make it real? How do you turn that spark into a sustainable, profitable business? Well, the answer is in the plan you make for the journey. And in the business world, that plan, that's your budget.
Okay, so let's dive into exactly what we mean by that. How does a budget solve this puzzle? It's the practical tool that connects that big, exciting vision of yours to the cold, hard cash in the bank.
Think about it like this. Starting a business is like planning a huge road trip. You wouldn't just get in the car and start driving hoping for the best, would you? Of course not. A budget is your detailed itinerary. It's the plan that says, okay, here's where we're going, here's what we expect to spend on gas and food, and here's how much money we have for the trip. It's your financial plan for a set period of time, usually a year.
And really, every budget has two sides of the same coin. On one side, you've got your sales revenue budget. That's your destination. That's how much you plan to make from selling your stuff. Then you have the expenditure budget. That's your budget for gas, food, and hotels. You know, all the money you need to spend on essentials like raw materials, paying your team, and just keeping the lights on.
But here's the thing. Just like any road trip plan, a budget isn't perfect. It can be an incredibly powerful tool for sure, but it can also be a huge headache. It's really a double-edged sword. Let's start with the good stuff. When a budget is working well, it's a total game changer. It gives you control, so you're not just guessing where your money is going. It gets everyone on the team rowing in the same direction, which is huge for communication. It shines a big bright light on where you're being wasteful. And it gives everyone clear targets to aim for, which can be a massive motivator. It even lets managers hand off tasks without losing control of the finances. It's pretty amazing.
But, and this is a big but, it's not always so simple. I mean, just creating a budget can take up a ton of a manager's time. And if those budget targets are just handed down from on high without any discussion, yeah, that can cause some serious resentment. And what happens if the real world throws you a curveball and your actual results are way off from the plan? Suddenly the budget feels kind of useless. Or worse, a super rigid budget might mean you miss out on a golden opportunity just because it wasn't in the plan.
So that brings us to a really important point. What happens when your beautifully crafted plan meets the messy, unpredictable real world? That gap between your plan and what actually happens, well, that's where we need to talk about variances.
A variance is actually a pretty simple idea. It's just any difference between what you budgeted and what actually happened. So, back to our road trip, a variance is that unexpected detour, that surprisingly cheap gas station, or that night you had to spend in a much more expensive hotel. It's any little deviation from your original plan.
And these variances basically come in two flavors. You have a favorable variance, that's the good stuff. It means you end up with more profit than you planned. Maybe you spent less than you thought you would, or you brought in way more revenue. That's like finding a shortcut that saves you gas money. On the flip side, you have an adverse variance. And yeah, that's the bad news. It means your profits are lower than you planned because you spent too much or didn't sell enough. That's hitting that unexpected 5-hour traffic jam.
Okay, this is all great in theory, but to really get it, we need to see it in action. Numbers tell a story, so let's dig into a quick case study.
So, I want you to meet JHP Limited. They make ready-made meals, and the guy in charge, Peregrine Pickles, is looking over last year's budget to see how things actually went compared to the plan he made.
Okay, now look at this, because this tells a fascinating story. On the one hand, Peregrine did an incredible job managing his costs. Look at that. He spent £220,000 less than he planned. That's a huge favorable variance, a major win. But then you look at sales revenue and, wow, it was a disaster. He missed his sales target by £430,000. So even though he was a rock star at saving money, that massive sales shortfall meant his overall profit took a huge hit, ending up £210,000 in the red compared to the budget.
So what's the story the numbers are telling us? Well, the great cost numbers suggest Peregrine is fantastic at operations. Maybe he found a cheaper supplier or made his process more efficient. But that awful sales number, that points to a much bigger problem. Was the economy bad? Did a competitor release a killer new product? The variances are forcing him to ask some really tough questions, not just about spending, but about the whole direction of the company.
So all of these challenges we've seen, the inflexibility, the potential for these massive surprising variances, it's led a lot of businesses to say, hey, maybe there's a better way to do this. They started rethinking the whole budgeting process.
And one of the most radical new ideas is something called zero budgeting. The idea here is instead of just taking last year's budget and tweaking it a little, you start from scratch, from zero, every single year. Every single manager has to justify every single dollar they want to spend right from the ground up. In our road trip analogy, it's like planning a totally new trip every year instead of just booking the same hotel you went to last time.
The process is really a whole different mindset. You literally start with a blank page. Then, you have to fight for every dollar, proving why it's necessary. This forces you to be incredibly strategic, to cut out the fat, and to make sure your money is going to the places where it'll make the biggest impact right now.
Now, zero budgeting is powerful, but it's also, as you can imagine, super time intensive. So a lot of businesses use something called flexible budgeting. This approach builds adaptability right into the plan from the start. So, for example, the budget might say, if our sales go up by 20%, our production costs can also go up by a certain percent. It's like having a GPS that reroutes you automatically when there's traffic, instead of just sticking to an old paper map.
So when you boil it all down, what are the ingredients for a truly great budget? Well, first, it has to be aligned with the big goals of the business. It should be built with input from lots of different people, not just the folks at the top. The targets should be challenging, sure, but they also have to be realistic. And it can't be something you just set and forget. You have to monitor it regularly. And maybe most importantly, it has to be flexible enough to handle the curveballs the real world is going to throw at you.
Because in the end, a budget is so much more than a spreadsheet. It's a story. It's the story of your company's vision, its priorities, its strategy for winning. It's a narrative that forces you to make tough choices about what really matters. So, the question I want to leave you with is this. If your business had a budget, what story would it tell about you?